everyone. Welcome back to episode 101 of Talk of Fame podcast with your host, Kylie Montigney. And I'm so excited to have on voice actor, content creator, and host of Cup podcast, Tim Heller. Thanks so much for coming on, Tim.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Kylie.
Of course. So you're the host of Second Cup podcast. Can you tell us
Yes.
more about the podcast and how you came up with the idea to start it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the kind of person that listens to podcasts more often than music, whether that's embarrassing or something I should be proud of. But I've always wanted to start a podcast, but wanted to be really intentional about not just creating something that was more white noise out there. And so I was in the middle of a job that had me booked all day, every day for about 5 weeks, and I only had about 20 minutes in the morning during my second cup of coffee that I wanted to make sure that I stayed in touch with friends, was still able to make some videos for all of my channels, and came up with the idea of just putting out a link on my website that people could click and sign up to be interviewed if they wanted to talk about something. And the message was, if you want to talk about something, then I want to talk to you. So it started as a really fun way to stay in touch with friends while I was in this job. And it evolved into something where we talk about mental health, creativity, running a creative business, when to take your creative business full time, and sobriety, and really a safe space for people to come and be vulnerable and talk about whatever they want to talk about.
That's amazing. Like, do you have like a favorite podcast that you listen to? 'Cause I remember you just said like you listen to podcasts more than music, so I'm kind of interested in what you
Oh,
listen to.
for sure. Absolutely. I love Armchair Expert with Monica Padman and Dax Shepard,
Mhm.
and all of their series that they do within that. Revisionist History by Malcolm Gladwell is another podcast I love. And then I listen to a couple of my friends' podcasts, Star Wars Stuff podcast. And yeah, and I also really enjoy Smartless too
Mhm.
with those guys. I think they're hilarious.
Yeah, Armchair Expert is seriously one of my favorite podcasts. So like, I listen to every single episode of Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard, and I never get old of it ever.
Yeah, same. I've been listening since the first day that they put an episode out, and I haven't missed one since. And it's just it helped me with a lot of things that I was going through in my life, and has inspired me to kind of start my own podcast.
I love that. And so, like, what do you kind of hope people kind of take away from your podcast?
That's a great question. I hope people feel inspired to ask to come on. That's something that's been interesting to hear, is that people feel nervous to ask to come on a show and feel like they need to be invited on a show. And I have, two formats of it, where one is the normal format of 20 to 30-minute episodes that are just that quick original format of Second Cup. And then recently started doing a format called Extra Cup, where I'm inviting people on to talk for an hour to an hour and a half, people that I know, and know that we have a lot to talk about. So,
Hmm.
and then I also hope that they come away from these episodes feeling inspired to create, or to take that leap of faith and make a big pivot that they need to make in their job or their life, or whatever they feel like they really are called to do. I hope that they are inspired by others' vulnerability, to go out and be vulnerable and strong themselves.
I love that. Like, that's literally the same mission as me. Maybe every podcaster as well, because obviously we wouldn't be doing podcasting if we didn't love it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Because it's
like,
not easy. It is a lot of work.
mhm.
It may look easy from the outside in, and I'm guilty of thinking that it was going to be a little bit easier and more streamlined than it actually is, but it is a labor of love for sure.
Yeah, and I literally thought the same exact thing. I literally thought it was gonna be the easiest thing in the world, and I was wrong. I was like, I legit thought it was gonna be the easiest thing, but it's not easy at all. I mean, maybe
No.
a little bit, but it's more hard than easy.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's great. It's a great way to connect with people. And if you're struggling to come up with ideas for content, if you're a content creator, starting a podcast about something that you love and just starting to talk, it's a great opportunity to develop long form content that
Mhm.
can translate very easily and very quickly into the short form content that is now kind of crucial to building an audience on social media.
Hmm. And so, do you have like a favorite guest that kind of like meant almost to you, or had like the best conversation with on your podcast?
It's so hard to pick just one because, and I know this is cliche to say, but I truly have enjoyed every guest I've had on, and I'm a very much so a people person and love
Mm-hmm.
everybody that's come on. If I had to pick one, I'd probably have to say my dad. It's he and I have always been really close, but to see him kind of face his fear of talking publicly, even though in the podcast it's just he and I talking through the screen,
Mm-hmm.
um, it was really wonderful to see the reception of his episode and how his vulnerability and his story really resonated with a lot of people. And his episode is the most listened to episode, and has probably meant the most to me so far.
I love that. And so, like, what are some qualities you must have or kind of must like kind of show or to be a podcaster?
I really feel like it's there's not one equation or one recipe to becoming a podcaster. I
Mm-hmm.
think,
Yeah.
I don't have any inflated sense of who I am or what I do, who I am in the industry or even in the podcasting world. I don't have the most popular show, but I also don't have the least popular show. And so
Mm-hmm.
but I think that as long as you have something that you are passionate about and you're spreading, positivity at the very least, positivity and hope, and not spewing anything that's too negative or inciting any kind of negative actions on others, then I feel like then you have what it takes to do it. You don't need
Mm-hmm.
fancy equipment. You don't need a fancy studio. You can literally just do it on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the qualities I would say is tenacity, hard work, and a willingness to fail forward, because it really is. You're going to make mistakes, and if you can go into it knowing that and embracing that, then it's only going to take you further faster.
Exactly. And like, even though some people literally hate mistakes, I'm talking about me and other people, but like with coming into the podcasting world, like everything, there's always okay to make mistakes. And that
Yeah.
is something that I had a hard time wrapping my head about because I always want things to be perfect the way it is.
Absolutely. I sympathize with that and empathize with that so much. And the fact that you have that perspective at such a young age is really powerful and important to take with you, regardless of if you stay in the podcasting world or take it into a different profession or whatever you end up choosing to do with your life, or however many different paths you decide to take. It is really key. And I feel like the willingness to make mistakes publicly, like we're doing on social media, with podcasts, with whatever it is, it takes a lot of courage, right? And
Mhm.
that's the scary part, is will I say something incorrectly, or will it, like, am I going to stutter, or will I ask a silly question, or whatever it may be.
Mhm.
But just the willingness to go and do that and learn from it is really such an incredible launch pad
Mhm.
for so many different areas of your life. It teaches you humility, it teaches you to laugh at yourself, and that it's not everything is as serious in the moment as it may feel.
Mhm. Exactly. And so you got to play winner in the show History of the Super Bowl. Like, what
Oh,
was like that process like getting to play that role?
that I love that you watched that skit. It's that was a really fun skit. When I lived in New York, my wife and I lived there for a long time, and we one of my friends that I ended up making through doing some voiceover work, he runs a YouTube channel called Sour Pickles TV, and one of their writers came up with this funny sketch to do a history of the Super Bowl one year. I think it was like 2018 or 2019, and we did a short recap, comedic recap of every Super Bowl game up until that point. And it was really fun. It was just it was a total like bootstraps situation where we showed up at a friend's apartment and they set up all their camera and lighting gear, and we had a rough outline of the sketch, and we just started shooting and got to improv, making each other laugh all day. And yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's part of one of the beautiful things of living in New York, or really any city where you have friends that are making stuff, is
Hmm.
just going and saying yes and doing it for free, and just making each other laugh. It was really fun. So
And like, are you a football fan besides doing that role, or are you not a football fan?
yeah, I love sports. I grew up playing sports. We're a big soccer family. Growing up in the Chicago area, we watched the White Sox, the Bears, all of it. So I mean, I watch mostly soccer right now, but I am a basketball, football, hockey fan as well. So,
That's how my family is. My family is such a big sports fan. It's crazy. Like from coming from a small town in Pennsylvania, like our local team is the Phillies.
uh-huh.
And my family is a big Phillies fan, but and I'm not. I grew up watching Phillies, but I'm a Dodger fan. And
Yeah,
my
I saw the Dodgers flags. How did that happen? Especially, and I mean, now with it's not a bad time to be a Phillies fan,
Yeah, it's
but
not a bad time. My dad actually, the last couple weeks, I've been going to games with them to see them play when they're home. And my dad be like, it's never too late to become a Phillies fan. I'm like, uh, that's not gonna happen. And
yeah.
so a couple of years ago, when it all came about, I went to my mom actually got tickets for a Phillies game from work. And so actually, me and my family decided to go to Philly and go to a Dodger game, Phillies versus Dodgers. And nothing is better than going to see the Phillies and Dodgers play, of course. And coming from a big Phillies family, Chase Utley was still playing for the Phillies, not for the Phillies, the Dodgers. It was his final season, and he was me and my brother's favorite player.
Mm,
And so I was like, nothing's better than seeing our favorite player live for the final time.
yeah.
And so when we went to the game was 18 innings. It didn't get done until like 1 a.m. and it was insane. And it wasn't even the playoffs. It was like a normal like regular season. Because the
Yeah.
Phillies haven't made a playoff since like 2009, I think, until this year. So it was like a regular season game. And I remember when Chase Utley came up to bat, and I remember him getting hit. I remember just kind of losing my mind because like I was like, oh my God, this is the last time I'm seeing my favorite player hit ever in my entire life. I've
Uh-huh.
kind of being a baseball fan, I wanted able to see him play again. And then I went home. Out the game actually finished, and the Dodgers won surprisingly. And we went home the next day. I remember turning on the TV, and I turned on the Dodger Phillies game, and I remember just sobbing because I remember like, oh my God, this is the last time Phillies Chase Elliott playing at home.
Aw.
And I remember a couple of days later, I decided to turn on the Dodger game, and it actually wouldn't load. And I was like, Mom, Dad, I need you to play the Dodger game for me right now. And you're like, Kylie, like, why you want to watch the Dodgers? And I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of make up this stupid answer. And little did I know I was a Dodger fan at that point with
Ah,
Chase Utley.
it was just
And
that
it makes
one
me
night.
think, like after he retired, I'm still actually a Dodger fan. And like I
Yeah.
would think, and my family thought I was just gonna stop being a Dodger fan after he retired, but that really wasn't the
They
case.
thought wrong.
Yeah, and actually my brother and my dad just went to the game to go see them in the World Series today. And so I'm
What?
like, and they try
That's
to
so
convince
fun.
me to go. And I'm like, I'm good. Like I just went the last couple of weeks. You guys enjoy yourselves. I don't care. Like I was like, you guys do your own thing. Especially like the World Series costs like thousands and thousands of dollars, and I didn't
Yeah.
want my dad to spend that money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just do your own thing. Like
He's
I don't
just got to
care.
promise you that the next time LA goes to the World Series, that he'll get you there.
Yeah,
That's the
and like
trade-off.
when the Dodgers actually went to the World Series back in 2020, if they actually went to the Game Seven, which they didn't. They ended things in game six. He would have taken me to Texas for the World Series. But that wasn't the
Oh,
case.
man.
So I was kind of happy that they won, or else I would have been so scared that I would probably have to sit in the bathroom the whole time. And that was kind of like the case for the Phillies game last week with my father. Like
Uh-huh.
we were so nervous that they were going to clinch that like we're like, okay, I feel like I should leave. And I was
Yeah.
literally walking around the whole time scared of what they're going to do. And so you got to play in some musical roles as well. In your opinion, like how is theater and filming a movie different from each other or kind of similar for you?
Yeah, so I went to school for musical theater at Texas State University, and that was kind of what I thought I would be doing with my life was Broadway and straight plays and stuff like that. And And so, and I did do that for a little while before I switched over to voiceover, and just limited like filming sketches and short web series with friends and stuff like that. And I mean, it's different in a lot of different ways, but I'd say, one of the biggest ways is probably that with theater, you are with these people sun up, sundown for rehearsals for, anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks, I guess, depending. 6 weeks would be a really long rehearsal period, but depending on the show and depending on where you're doing it, it can be that long. And then you do the show 8 times a week for a couple weeks, couple months, depending on where it is, or a couple years if you're lucky enough to be in a show that runs that long on Broadway. And with film and TV, it's just a little bit different because it's, if you're a guest star or co-star, you get your lines short, like a little bit before you're supposed to show up, like a couple days maybe. And you show up on set, it's fast and furious. You like do your lines, you get out, and everything moves on. So I mean, both are fun in their own right. I would say if you are curious about exploring film and TV or acting in general, try everything. Just because, and same thing with voiceover, and try all the genres, try as much as you can, because you may think that you'll love one thing more than another, or even think that you may not be very good at one thing. And until you try it and see that, oh, this brings me a lot of joy, or this is really fun, or, I am actually pretty good at this. Let me continue following where this leads. But they're very different. And then there's also like theater acting versus TV acting is the same at its core, but technically and how you execute, it's very different. Just because with a camera, it's 2 inches away from your face sometimes. And with theater, you are 200 feet away from the person in the back of the balcony, and still have to convey the same story as the person in the front row. So it's different, but they're both wonderful in their own way.
Like, do you have like any favorite Broadway show that you've been in, or favorite like Broadway show that's on or off Broadway
Yeah,
right
so
now?
I never got to perform on Broadway, but one of my favorite shows that I saw that was in New York, it was technically off Broadway, but it was on 47th and 8th, where all the Broadway theaters are. It was Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812. It recently had, a couple years back, had its Broadway debut, but with a different set of actors and a different theater. And what made this experience of their off-Broadway run so exciting and fun was that they had built a tent in a parking lot in Midtown in New York City, and built this really interactive restaurant slash bar into this tent. And that's where the show happened. And the actors are the musicians, or are some of the musicians, and they're running through the audience, and the story is happening all around you. And one of my friends from high school was in it, and to get to see her do this lead role was really, really special and cool to see at the time, because I was still in college, and it was just one of the most immersive and exciting theater experiences that I had ever had.
And it's like I'm like a huge like theater film fan. I legit went to theater production last weekend. I
Yeah.
went to see The Music Man with Hugh Jackman and Sam Foster.
Oh, very cool.
And that was my third time watching it. And I'm a huge Hugh Jackman fan.
Yeah.
And
Same.
so I was like, I need to go see Hugh again, like in The Music Man, since like it's the best Broadway show I've ever seen. I remember we got last minute tickets.
Uh-huh.
I went by myself, and my dad just kind of stood and went next door and charged his phone and stuff, and while I went by myself. And it was the tickets were like, how like tickets are so expensive for Broadway.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
usually about like $200, not including fees, like stuff like that. And the tickets that we got were only $49,
Yeah,
which
I mean,
was
there's so
not
many
horrible.
great ways to get cheap tickets, and we just went to go see my best friend from high school is on Broadway right now, and Take Me Out,
Oh
the
yeah,
play
I
with
heard
Jesse Tyler
that.
Ferguson and Jesse Williams, and we were just in New York this past weekend and got to go see him in that, and being able to, I mean, I don't know for that show if you can, but like we paid $100 and had great seats,
Really?
and but you can use TKTS, or I don't know what has changed since COVID, since we moved. But there are so many great ways to go see theater
Mm-hmm.
in New York City for not as much money as as face value tickets can cost.
Yeah, and like that's on my list to go see. Like Take Me Out is like one of the Broadway shows I want to see. Because I'm a huge Jesse Williams fan, and of course
Uh-huh.
it's based on baseball.
Yeah.
And from being a Grey's Anatomy fanatic, I
Hmm.
love Grey's Anatomy. And to see Jesse Williams on stage or someone from Grey's Anatomy is like I'll probably geek out the whole time.
Yeah, yeah, he was fantastic. Big fan of his, and big fan of Jesse Tyler Ferguson, and a total trip to see one of my closest friends up there with them too. So it was a special experience. It's a beautiful show. It's really,
Mhm.
really, it's very intense, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, and like with the Music Man tickets, like it cost $49, and I was in the second row watching the
Yeah.
show.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was at like the end, so you only saw like the half of the stage, but the seat like you sat at,
Uh-huh.
you couldn't see like kind of that part you were sitting at.
Yeah.
So you only saw like that in the middle or like at the end.
Uh-huh.
And when I was sitting there, I met Hugh Jackman a million times. So me and him are good friends at this point. And like at one point during the show, I was sitting there like losing my mind to be that close to Hugh Jackman again, but my first time being that close to him on a stage. And I remember just sitting there losing my mind. Like I'm like, oh my God, I'm close to Hugh Jackman right now.
Uh-huh.
Even though like I've been close to Hugh Jackman a million times chatting with them, I never freaked out that much. I'm like close to him by stage.
Yeah.
And at some point during the show, he will legit point at me and try to make me laugh during the show.
Oh,
And
that's
I'm
so
literally
sweet.
just sat there like losing it. I'm like, oh my God, Hugh Jackman is at me and everything. And I was like, that was literally the best experience of my life.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like literally trying to go again, even though I literally saw it 3 times. I'm like, I'm not gonna stop going.
That's
And so like
awesome.
how do you overcome obstacles as an actor?
Oh boy, it is. I mean, you get used to rejection real quick. You have to.
Mhm,
Just be, and it's not necessarily people saying no, you suck. It's just people not saying anything. You go to a bunch
mhm,
of auditions, and you will hear back. If you go to, I don't know, 50 auditions, you may hear back from a handful of them. There are those people that are really fortunate enough to be, booking right away when they graduate college, or even before then sometimes, or whenever they get to the city, or however they navigate their careers. Um, but you have to find the people and the places that make you feel whole.
mhm,
And I was really lucky that I married my best friend. My wife and I both went through the same musical theater program, so we both knew what each other was going through, to to a certain degree. And now, even when she's not performing right now, but it's you know it, having a partner like that, if you're lucky enough to have a partner that is around, that understands things, it's really important. But if you're also, if you're somebody working in LA or New York or any of these big cities and pursuing theater or any form of acting, it's really important for me, in my perspective, to have like a job outside of theater that really
mhm,
brings you light,
mhm,
and it'll only make you a better artist. At least for me, it was really great to get outside of just actors and just being around actors. And so, having day jobs that helped pay the bills and stuff like that, that really were with people who were born and raised in New York and had goals of doing any number of things. It
mhm,
helps bring you more perspective, and it helps you realize, A, how lucky you are to be pursuing what you love, and
mhm,
B, that all of these auditions and opportunities that you may not be getting now really aren't that big of a deal in the long run, because
mhm,
whatever is meant to be yours will be yours, and you have the power to create positivity and light around you. So really finding the people and places that bring you light and joy, and that help ground you in this pursuit of acting in this wild and wonderful business.
This industry is so crazy. Like I thought
Yeah.
this industry was about staying, but it's still difficult but fun at the same time. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And colleges and acting programs will tell you that this is hard, and you don't really know how hard it is until you're doing it. You can't really
Mhm.
communicate it because it is different for everybody.
Yeah.
regardless of where you're from or what you're doing. Everybody has a different path, but it's in my experience, it's worth it.
Hmm. And so the final question I have for you is, what is some advice for people that are just kind of starting out as an actor or as a podcaster?
Just start doing it. You got to make it. And I think Brene Brown said it. You have to make it shitty, and then you can make it better as you go. You don't know what you don't know until you don't know it. And so you just got to start. If you have an idea and you want to create something, don't wait for other people to tell you that it's a good idea. Don't wait for other people to rip your idea apart. You know, just
Mhm.
start making it, start writing it, start filming it, and you'll learn as you go. But there are some things that you can't learn until you're in the middle of it. So trust yourself. And then the other thing I would say is be really selective about who you're asking for feedback and who you let in your circle. You don't want just yes people that will affirm what you're saying and only lift you up and never be critical. And you also don't want the people who are only critical. You got to find those people who really know you and what your vision is and who you are and what your spirit is like to really help guide you in the right direction as you go. So surround yourself with the right people and just do it.
100%. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It means absolutely so much. It was so great talking with you. You're seriously amazing. I can't wait to chat with you soon. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for coming
thank you
on.
so much for having me on, Kylie. Keep doing the work that you're doing, and you're crushing it. Thanks for
Thank you
having me
so
on.
much. Same to you as well. Talk to you
Yep.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.